good? Welcome back to Black and Published, a podcast for writers, poets, playwrights, and storytellers of all kinds. I'm your host, Nikisha Elise Williams, an award-winning author, two-time Emmy Award-winning producer, publisher, all that good stuff. Today, we're talking with Morgan Jerkins, author of Call Baby, out right now from Harper Books, an imprint of HarperCollins. Morgan Jerkins is the author of Wandering in Strange Lands and the New York Times bestseller, This Will Be My Undoing. A visiting professor at Columbia University and a Forbes 30 Under 30 leader in media, Jerkins' short-form work has been featured in The New Yorker, The New York Times, The Atlantic, Rolling Stone, Elle, Esquire, and The Guardian, among many others. In this conversation, talking about her debut novel, we discuss Black motherhood in all of its complexities, magical realism in African American literature and how there is always some truth to it, and the connection and the syncretism between the sacred and the secular, no matter who or what you worship. Black and Published family, let's welcome Morgan to the show. All right. So Morgan, first, thank you for joining me today on Black and Published.
Thank you.
No problem. I always like to start the interview by asking, when did you first know that you were a writer?
Man, well, I thought that I knew that I was a writer when I was in high school. And I just mean because I wanted to create. I was a person that kind of kept my emotions bottled up, and I sought refuge through invention, I guess is the best word, seeking refuge through fictitious worlds and characters. But the older I get, the more I realize I had a writer capability earlier than that. I remember when I was younger on the school bus, I would revise famous movies and create like alternative mini scripts for them and have my friends act them out while we were on our way to school. So I always had my head in the clouds. I was always like elsewhere. Now, when did I know that I was a good writer? That came much later on, but I did know that I like to invent stories.
So you've always been on this path to basically write for a living.
Yeah, for the most part. Mm-hmm.
So then you talk about, the inventiveness you had as a child, but yet your first two books were nonfiction. Make it make sense.
I'm gonna make it make sense. All right. So the short answer is because more people knew me audience-wise for my nonfiction. When I graduated from college, I thought I had my life planned out for me. I thought I was going to graduate. I was going to get a job at a literary agency or a publishing house. Magically, someone was going to find my manuscript in the copy room, and I was going to discover it. And then I was just going to it's clean ascension. Obviously, that did not happen. I did not get a job graduating from college, despite the fact that I'd spent umpteen hours and a lot of money traveling to and from New Jersey for 15-minute interviews that would take up my whole day, and I wouldn't even get a call back. It was emotionally devastating. On top of that, I got dumped. I will say, I don't know if I say dumped, but it was a situation, you know how that go. And I thought me and this person was going to be together, and it did not turn out that way. So not only was I heartbroken romantically, I was heartbroken professionally. And I moved back home to my mother's home in a small town in New Jersey. And I was spending so many hours on the internet. And I saw that people my age were producing content for renowned publications, and they were building their portfolio. They were getting paid. And I was like, oh, wow, maybe I could do that. And that's what I did. I started freelancing. That's how I found my agent. And she knew that I wrote fiction. I was actually in a master's program, MFA program at the time, and my concentration was fiction. But because my name was more associated with nonfiction, she said, maybe we should do that project first. And that's what sold first. And so that's what we went with. But fiction was my first, is my first love.
So were you working on Call Baby at the same time that you sold This Will Be My Undoing?
No, no. So you know what? This Will Be My Undoing was a culmination of all of the essays and pieces that I've written that centered on Black womanhood, and the inequalities that I faced, others faced, memories that I hadn't unpacked for years that I was able to expound upon in the expanse of a book. Call Baby came about within probably my penultimate term of my master's program. I finally gathered the gall and the money to move to New York, and I was living in the thick of central Harlem, just blocks from the Apollo. And it was so much activity. And it also made me feel vulnerable as a Black woman because I had not been used to a city before. And I was thinking about, and this was at the time where, I don't know if you remember back in 2015, where there was conversations around street harassment and all of that and public. It was really zeitgeisty at that time. And that was really influencing my idea of what it means to be a Black woman in a rapidly changing neighborhood in a metropolis like New York. I always knew that I wanted to write about Harlem, but the developments of Call Baby were just immense over the years, because then I started to I started to become more, I don't want to say obsessed, but I guess with Black motherhood and its precarity in the United States. And that also got into the mix. And of course, you know, Call Baby had gone through many drafts, but initially Call Baby was supposed to be a short story. My mentor, his name is Alex Chi, wonderful literary citizen, has written books like Edinburgh and Queen of the Night. And he actually told me, he was my advisor, and he was like, this needs to be a novel. And the rest, as they say, was history.
Okay. So I see the layer and the influence of Harlem and Black motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have this other layer of like the Great Migration and Louisiana specifically. And like my family's from New Orleans, so I got really excited.
Wow.
I already know where she going. I'm here for it.
I was worried. I thought that, you know, I was trying to be, I was nervous. You know what I'm saying? Because even though Louisiana is a part of my heritage, I just learned about the depth of that lineage through writing my second book.
Yes,
Wandering in Strange Lands.
Yeah,
right.
That's my question. So, how did writing Wandering in Strange Lands, which is like your memoir and tracing your lineage, how did that help influence the shape of the novel that we have now?
Oh, the undercurrent of displacement. If you read Wandering in Strange Lands, especially with regards to the South, there's so many stories about Black people whose families have been there for generations, being displaced culturally and physically with regards to land loss or land theft. And I added that theme of displacement with regards to my mom, the matriarch of the Melanson family, because she's already migrated. You know, she's had to leave, and she is going to stop at nothing to make sure that her family is rooted in Harlem forever, no matter what it takes. And so that's what I wanted when people read this book, because I didn't want to think, oh, she's a villain. Maybe, but also she's a woman who wants to stay rooted, just like many of the other quote unquote old heads of Harlem. They don't want to leave. You know what I mean? So I wanted people to understand a little bit of her story and how it's a centuries long, fear, trepidation that's going on there.
Yeah, when I got to the end and she's looking at scuff on the wall and she's telling Josephine, I told you I was going to live and die in this house. I was like, oh, here we go.
Right. And so that's the way that I love to write. I love to write in circles. And what I mean by that is, I'm not going to say Black life generally, but the Black life that I have observed and lived. So much of the events that I've seen, particularly with women, and they often come through premonitions, dreams, quick little remarks that in the future, they come back around in full bloom, and you understand fully what the previous one was trying to teach you or trying to give you a message. And that's what I wanted to show through that. Spoiler alert. But I definitely wanted to show that, like, anything that I'm talking about in the first half is going to come up again in the second half.
Yeah. And I like that it all came back, because when I started from like the very beginning, and I think you first mentioned the holes in the wall and the cracks in the corner. And I think in the very beginning, they're really small. But something that you mentioned about how Iris looked off at them, I was like, those are spirits.
Yes, right. And I was like, this is either going to go one or two ways for readers. They're going to look at this and they're going to be like, why is she talking about these, excuse my language, damn cracks? Or they're going to be like, no, there's something there. And that's what I wanted to show with Iris. Iris, the inspiration I got from Iris was Pilates. If you remember from Toni Morrison's novel, do you remember her?
Which
I think
novel?
That's how you pronounce her name. Was it Song of Solomon?
I think that's Pilot.
Yeah.
I know you're
sorry, about. Pilot. Excuse me, Pilot. So you remember Pilot, like, just very weird, but also just very deep. And that's what I want. That was the inspiration for Iris, was a little bit of Pilot. And I wanted people to pay attention to her when her mind starts wandering and she starts looking at all of the cracks and the crevices in the home. I wanted people to understand that this isn't just a random brownstone, that it's been lived in, and these women are carrying so much, and you just can't tamper with life and death like that and not have it be so palpable. And that's what I wanted to elucidate through these cracks, that these spirits, they may not be jump scare like, but they're appearing in other ways. The house is literally deteriorating from the inside out.
Yeah, but even like in the very beginning when the cracks are little, and I guess what sets the stage for the book and for everything to get bigger with Layla is that when they turned Layla away and it's finally revealed why, it says that because Iris kept saying that woman is going to make this house cave in on us. And then it's because of her statement that Maman doesn't give Layla the call. And then it's like, but she's seeing in the past, the present, and the future all at the same time. So you don't know what her statement was related to. And it was like, so then I kept thinking toward the end, like, if they had just given her the call, would this even have happened and gone on the rest of the way? But then we wouldn't have a book, I guess.
Right. And but the thing is, like, I wanted people to understand, like, Iris, Mama's just fed up with her. And that's what I wanted to explain. Like, Iris is poignant, but Mama is so disappointed in her. Her life did not go the way the mom wanted. And I think the way that Iris came in, just like given this premonition, it scared them, because these women were already considered pariahs of the neighborhood. These women were already financially in an unstable place. So to have your daughter say to you, well, this woman is gonna tear us apart, it just shook her. She's like, I don't want to have to deal with this. But by rejecting Layla, that just brought on more of an upheaval for decades to come. And it brings into question, even if she would have given her the call, would that have changed anything? I mean, this is a question of, fate and predeterminism that writers have been exploring since before Jesus, and like Greek mythology and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
But like you say, like, Mama is fed up with Layla, but then she was also disgusted by Josephine.
Oh, yeah. Because the thing about Josephine is, I want people to understand, is like, Josephine is emotionally stunted. This is a woman who, she doesn't know life outside of these couple blocks of Harlem. That's not how she was raised. As the firstborn, her job was to make other children. That was the only job that she was supposed to have. And the thing about Josephine is, she's not like Iris. She wanted to impress Mama so much. And the paradox or the irony in that is, despite the fact that she is a call bearer, she can impress clients that way with what she has with her body, she still can't create anything from within, meaning a child. And so that vexes her for a long time. And she is a bit of a prisoner in that home. So that's why the dynamic is different between Josephine and Mama and Iris, because Josephine wants to impress Mama so badly. And Mama is just disappointed in both of them, but she needs them. She needs them still, because they're literally all that they have.
Until Hallow.
Until Hollow. Mm-hmm.
I want you to read like a little section of it because we're just all into it now.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I was going to read the part about us, the cracks in the wall. So I'll just read a little couple paragraphs of that, and then would that be okay?
All right. So this is the description of Call Baby. Layla desperately wants to become a mother, but each of her previous pregnancies has ended in heartbreak. This time has to be different. So she turned to the Melanzons, an old and powerful Harlem family known for their call, a precious layer of skin that is the secret source of their healing power. After a deal for Layla to acquire a piece of call falls through, she is devastated, and when the child is stillborn, overcome with grief and rage. What she doesn't know is that a baby will soon be delivered in her family by her niece, Amara, an ambitious college student, and given to the Melanzons to raise as one of their own. Hallow is special. She's born with a call, and their matriarch, Maman, predicts the girl will restore the family's prosperity. Growing up, Hallow feels that something in her life is not right. Did Josephine, the woman she calls mother, really bring her into the world? Why does her cousin Helena get to go to school and roam the streets of New York freely while she's confined to the family's decrepit brownstone? As the Melisons' thirst to maintain their status grows, Amara, now a successful lawyer running for district attorney, looks for a way to avenge her long-standing grudge against the family. When mother and daughter cross paths, Hallow will be forced to decide where she truly belongs. Engrossing, unique, and page turning, Call Baby illuminates the search for familial connection, the enduring power of tradition, and the dark corners of the human heart. All right, Morgan, it's all yours.
All right. There were cracks on all four corners of Maman's bedroom, and they were hungry. Black, jagged, and deep, they resembled outstretched hands whose claws leaned toward the center, anticipating when they could devour her whole. They were Maman's biggest nuisance. Over the years, she'd squandered thousands to get them painted over, but there was no polymer in the world that could overpower a vengeful spirit. She knew their brownstone was askew ever since Iris had been born. Cups stained in the cupboard minutes after they had been washed. Subtle sounds like fingernails scraping against windows or sharp winds on the inside persisted. But ever since Iris's premonition about that woman Layla, the outside presences became more apparent. The holes in the ceiling grew larger, the wallpaper chipped and crusted no matter how many times it was patched over, and the aroma in certain rooms was stale and dead, even if perfumed oil in glass decanters was used to diffuse the smell. She didn't want to believe it. The house had been lived in for decades. Wear and tear was natural. But Mama was getting older. She'd have to move from her master bedroom down to the office on the first floor because her legs were no match for the stairs in her old age. Though the call nevertheless protected her body, it did not protect the mind in the same way. She had always been perceptive, paranoid even, which is why she took Iris's words to heart. But now she wondered if taking heed to that premonition about Layla's unborn child wasn't enough. The Melanson family were accustomed to precarious living situations. Before migrating, they lived along the Cane River in Natchitoches, Louisiana. Each family owned a home on heirs' property from the river to the back swamp. The ranch in which Mama resided was on land between the river and an artificial levee. The living room itself right along the central waterway, a risk for whenever there were high tides and hurricanes. Cochon de lait characterized many weekends, night-long carrying on and feasting on roast suckling pig before Sunday Mass at St. Augustine. When pallbearers lived peacefully, they distilled oil from their camphor trees and sold them as medicine and perfume, as a side hustle to everyone from the neighbors to the priests. Ever since Hollow was born, Mama had been reminiscing about simpler days spent raising chickens and hogs or watching the sun touch the valley's horizon through the sandhills. She felt secure. Her family was secure, their legacy intact. Hollow regenerated Paul more quickly than anyone Mama had ever seen. She was the future, the successor. For the first years of Hollow's life, Mama fantasized without worry. She would sink deep into her mattress and recall the smell of the sycamore or azalea. How, as a child, unlike her relatives, she was endowed with an apprehension about her sense of place while living on a seemingly congenial pocket of space where the land and water met. Moving to Harlem had brought its challenges. The camellia red beans, white lily flour, Creole seasoning, and Louisiana hot sauce did not cook so richly here. In the summertime, the scent of fried chicken wafted through the air. Then in the colder months, the air smelled of nothing but rain. They substituted their gardens for flower pots, lawns for stoops, camphor oils for their bodies. But at least they owned their brownstone outright. She and her husband, Alexander, had pulled their resources together, what she made selling her car and what he made as a blacksmith, to move up north and start anew. Of course, the city lights had been too much temptation for him. Just like a man, Mama often told herself when she caught herself missing him. He had no interest in being a blacksmith anymore or hearing about how Mama was progressing with the call-bearing business. Whatever earnings they cultivated, he squandered on drinking and gambling until finally Mama caught him laid up with a cabaret singer. She kicked him and his belongings out on Frederick Douglass Boulevard, and he left without so much as a request for reconciliation, let alone an apology. The only thing she could remember him by was a small wrinkled photo of him that she kept on her desk and had never thought to remove after all these years. Since Alexander left her with two small children, Mama poured everything she could back into their home, devoting painstaking effort to making sure every corner was dusted and every surface polished. The home, like her business and her children, was her world, and she was hell-bent on preserving her world, bounded within these four walls.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So there were some definite themes that I noticed in reading the book. One of them is the sinister role of money as a motivator, especially like with Landon and Josephine, because it's like they wanted to be free, but the money was just too good. And so they always acquiesced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm so glad I'm making you laugh. Yeah. Capitalism is a powerful thing. And I want to just contextualize that part of it because I was actually revising this book in late May of June of last year. So that was in the beginning, that was during social isolation, that was during the pandemic, and society fell apart. And it made me more conscious of the things that people do to survive. And so you have this man, Landon, who is a lot more worldly than Josephine. He has his own family. And Josephine feels like a prisoner in their home. And yeah, they want to escape, but where are they going to go? And that's one thing that Mama kind of wields at the moment where you think that Josephine is going to finally exert some self-autonomy. Just open the door. And she says, where are you going to go? You're probably going to go only as far as Marcus Garvey Park. And the sad thing about that is that it's true. And, you know, in the midst of revising my novel, I've been watching a lot of documentaries on abuse. And, you know, some of them very zeitgeisty and things that Twitter talks about. And sometimes people who don't understand will ask, why didn't that person leave? Why didn't that person just call a Lyft? Why didn't that person call their friends? Why didn't that person open the door? And you always hear from victims that they were isolated. They were isolated from all that. So imagine in Josephine's position where you have all this money and you're already isolated, despite being in a big city. It's so hard to turn that knob because where else are you going to go? And what else are you going to do? If all your life you've been raised to believe that you were talented based on what you grew on your body, you don't have any other vocational skills. So you often feel limited in that way. Yeah, the more I think about it, it's really sad.
It was very sad, but like even with you bringing up the role of abuse, I like that because that was something I tried to explore in my first novel was the role of abuse and also almost making the character seem, as horrible as it sounds, complicit in their own abuse because they don't have the strength to get up and go.
Let's talk about it. No, yeah, let's talk about, and that's the one thing that I never said in the book was abuse.
Yeah, and it comes up once from Helena.
Yeah, it comes up once from Helena when Helena, who is free, she is free because she is, for lack of a better word, damaged. Mm-hmm. And that's what her mother wanted. I'm not going to spoil it what Iris does, but she wanted her to be free. And it's only when Helena realized, I want to help people in a different way. I want to be a social worker, that she gives this social worker other vocabulary to something that had been going on in their family for years, right?
Yeah.
And I often think about that with Black women. Some, the conversations that I hear, some of the stuff that we think that we go through is so normal, and then we read a book or we watch something and we realize, no, that wasn't normal. This is a word for that, and it's terrifying. But aside from what Helena says, the reason why I didn't put abuse in any of the other parts of the book is because it's so murky. And it's so murky, and I wanted the characters to speak for themselves. I wanted to show how characters can become wrapped up in it. And I think that when we think about capitalism and when it comes to Black women's bodies, abuse is often a byproduct of that. And I don't know if there's any getting away from it. That's the bad part, because these women made an enterprise out of their bbodies. And that's the hard part. So that's something I've still been thinking about to this day, is like, if an interviewer asked me, well, why didn't you say that Hala was being abused? Why won't you say that? It's because honestly, it didn't cross my mind. It didn't cross my mind because I wanted people to see the dynamics first before me putting this.
I don't even think that's something for you to say. Like, yes, you're the author and you're in control, whatever. That's a whole other discussion. But like, that's not something that you can say writing the story of these characters. Like, I always feel like as authors, especially for fiction novelists, we are conduits of a story. So if they don't see themselves as being abused, then that's not for you to say. So like, when it only came up with Helena, I understood that. But even you talking about them making an enterprise of their body, and then the role of money, the role of Black women and Black motherhood, I sensed the larger commentary on all the things that Black people, especially Black women, do to survive, and it's still not enough for white people.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting that you say that, because I think for me, I'm very hard on myself, and I often think when you're a Black author, and I'm sure you've been through this, a lot of times when you're interviewed, they want you to have an answer for everything. They want you to ask, well, who are you writing for? They want to ask, what do you think your responsibility is, your social responsibility, aside from just creating art? You know what I'm saying? And so I definitely look at myself as a conduit. But there are times where I may, even aside from creating Colby, where I'm very hard on myself. But I also remind myself that part of the reason why I made this book is because I want people to see Black women, all their complexity, whether they rub them the wrong way or not. It's about survival, and my survival doesn't look like someone else's survival. So rather than creating these parameters for these characters with certain, with a certain lexicon, just let them speak. And come to your own conclusions.
Yes. And one of the conclusions I got was that the role of women and children in society still as second-class citizens. Hold on, there was something that made me say that.
Oh, wow.
Page 1. No, y'all was in it.
I love it. I love
129, you said, children have to be useful. They weren't born just to be born, but to continue a lineage. And I was like, So like, everybody has to play a role, but even in the children and the women playing a role, they're still not seen as doing enough. Even toward the end with Amara and Ethan, like their dynamic, like she was very much an alpha woman, very ambitious, very in charge of herself and her career, but he still made her feel, or relegated her to, a place of peonage.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, because another thing that I got inspiration from for Amara's older character was Kamala Harris. The reason why I got the inspiration from her is because when she announced her presidential run, people were like, well, I don't trust her because of her policies while she was, working as a senator in California. I don't trust her because how can she be progressive when she is a part of the carceral state? And that is something that I thought about. It's like, well, how Amara is someone who, for all intents and purposes, she has a vendetta against the Melanson family. She wants to go after them specifically, but to get the power to go after them unfettered, in an unfettered way, she has to have casualties along the way. There's no sidestepping that if you are working as an assistant DA. And that's why I wanted to start off that part of the novel with the guilt that she has had to carry for all of these years, because she's so hell-bent on taking them down, not even realizing all the casualties in her wake, or realizing it, but still suffering on the back end because of it.
Yeah, the creation of the Asali Givens case, I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting was Asali was actually going to be the short story of Call Baby in the beginning. That was Asali was actually supposed to be the short story of Call Baby, where she was the one that gave birth to a call bearing child, and then she abandons that child. Not the child dies, and it was going to be a short story. Then it just expanded. So it's interesting how revision will take you in all different types of directions, and even the stuff that you don't use, you can put it in someplace else.
Very, very much so. And the theme of mothers trying to do the best and make the best decision for their children comes later in the book in the exchange between Iris and Helena. When I think Iris says, a mother will do whatever she has to ensure her child's happiness, even if it has to hurt. And it's like, children don't get any say in like the shaping of their future. And so then they have to deal with the decisions of their parents no matter what.
Ain't that crazy? I mean, the other day, this is going to sound tangential, but one of my favorite bands is The Crow. And the lead singer, I was reading of his personal life, and he and his wife decided that they didn't have children together because they feel like they didn't have the right to give life. Why would they give life to someone without them having any say in it? And I was like, and to this day, like I'm thinking about, because I've never heard a couple do that. And that's the thing. We don't have a choice what our parents pass on to us. Good things, bad things, intergenerational child. We don't. Sorry, not The Crow, The Cure. Sorry, The Cure is the band, excuse me. But we don't have a choice what they pass on to us. And I think the thing with mothers is like, I'm thinking about a lineage of Black mothers. I'm thinking about Setha, for example, in Beloved.
Yes.
Now, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, oh, if I decontextualize, infanticize, horrible, yes. But if you lived in a system as horrifying as slavery, and you don't want anybody to experience that, especially your child, what would you do? I'm not saying I would do that, but I understand where that act of desperation comes from. And so I think that is what I wanted people to also understand, aside from the magical realist aspects of it, the gravity of being a parent and what that means. And certain things are just inescapable, no matter where you turn. Yeah, these questions are really making me think even long. It's weird how, I don't know if you've gone through this as an author, but like I've written 3 books already, 3 published books. And, I started my life off writing online, my professional life. So I'm used to quickness, right? You write it, you move on. You write it, you move on. And I understand, obviously, that a book has a longer shelf life than a 1,500 word article. Like, however, it's interviews like these where you realize that it still pulsates. Even after you finish your edits, when the book is bound and you get a review copy and you put it away because you're thinking about another project, you're like, it still breathes. And sometimes someone has to show you the other aspects that you cover, but you're like, it's just adding another layer to like that kaleidoscope where you're like, yeah, I did do that. Or yeah, maybe there was another vein there that I added, but I just didn't think about because I'm thinking of the other overarching elements. So thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. I completely agree and can understand that feeling, especially like with my last novel that came out, which was last year's, called Beyond Bourbon Street, set in New Orleans, post Katrina or whatever. But
Wow.
when I wrote that book, I think it was like 2016, but I knew it was never going to come out until 2020. And so when I went back to revise that book, I had a very different perspective on what had been written. So it went through a lot of revision, heavy edit. And even though the story structure remained the same, just my outlook kind of changed. And so I find myself now, as I'm writing other projects and doing other things. I turned in a manuscript yesterday.
Well, congrats. Oh, wow.
Thank you. Just about how everything that I've done influences something that I'm getting ready to do next. And so
Mm-hmm.
those lingering things. So like I definitely saw the influence of Wandering in Strange Lands. I definitely saw the influence of Beloved. I even saw an influence of Eve's Bayou only because
Oh, wow.
okay, I'm glad that you like that comparison. I was like, I hope she doesn't think this is reductive.
Absolutely not. First of all, Eve's Bayou is one of the best movies directed by a Black woman ever. One of the best movies. I mean, we could have a conversation about that here, but no, that's not reductive at all. That's an honor. Thank you. I love that.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Okay, good. Because I was like, I hope she doesn't think these
Of
comparisons are
course
reductive.
not.
But
Oh
yeah,
my
I was like,
God.
I
No.
saw the connection to Eve's Bayou, and there might even be connection to Daughters of the Dust because
Oh my God.
with the story of how the Melancons got to Harlem and the story of the great great grandmother learning
Mm-hmm.
that the call is regenerative, and so we can start to sell it to protect ourselves from the white people who are going to come lynch us if we don't give it to them.
Right, right. And it's also then the Daughters of Dust, the old ways are changing. The old ways are changing. I think with now that you brought up Eve's Bayou, I think the whole thing about Moselle, the character of Moselle,
Mm-hmm.
she's seen as, Lewis, played by Samuel Jackson's like, listen, my aunt, my sister is, she's not unfamiliar with the inside of a mental home. That's what he literally like said. She's seen as crazy, but she has these premonitions, and that is interesting, because Call Baby is billed as a magical realist novel, and I am okay with that because it is. At the same time, everything in that book feels real to me. Everything from the premonitions to the cracks in the wall, that all feels real. And not only that, and I don't want to take it too far because I don't want to be eye roll inducing, but Black women are supposed to be strong for everyone. Everybody thinks we're so strong. Everybody thinks we're so powerful. We're supposed to be there for everyone. Is a call that out of the ordinary? Think about how much people lean on Black women for everything. How everybody comes to us for everything, for our bodies, how much they have fed and nourished and sustained everybody else at the expense of ourselves. Is a call so far-fetched?
See, I didn't even think it was that far fetched because I think I thought of Gloria Naylor's book Mama Day, where
Wow.
where there's talk of a call, and then also in my own pregnancy, when I was pregnant with my son, my water never broke. They
Get out of here.
My water never broke, and so my son was going to be born under the call, but at the
What?
very last, like 9 centimeter, they broke my water to try to speed up my labor because I was doing a natural delivery.
Oh, they broke
So
it, like they actually broke it. Oh my
yeah, they
God.
went in and
Oh,
they
that
broke
sounds
my water.
painful. Oh my God.
By that time, I didn't
Oh,
feel it.
okay. I'm like, ooh.
But yeah, they went in and they
So,
broke my water because it never broke on its own, even though I was in active labor.
uh,
So hearing the name Call Baby and understand, I was like, oh, I'm already in this because my son was damn near born under one.
right. And my aunt Renee, that's right, I call her Aunt Shireen. She was born with a veil. That's what my mother said. And my Aunt Renee, I'm telling you, she is under the radar, but she knows how to read people like nobody's business all the time. She's always been that way. And that's what I always like to tell people, like in African American folklore, someone who has a call is a very precious thing. Obviously, I'm not the first person to mention it. Tina McElroy Ainsley, who I quoted in the book, she wrote about the call, as you said, Gloria Naylor's Mama Day. She also mentions it. It's a very powerful thing. And also just the idea of Black other motherhood, something that you mentioned earlier about revision. We are such different people from the first draft to the last copy edit. We changed so much, and I did, because when I first thought of Call Baby, back in 2015, I didn't even know if I wanted to be a mother. Now, Black motherhood is all I could think about. That's all I could think about. I think it was intensified back in 2018. I think it was when the New York Times wrote a feature of how many Black mothers were dying. How many Black mothers were dying? In fact, there was one time where the statistics were worse than they were during 1850. I'll never forget it. And that really affected me. And that still affects me to this day. And I thought about that. It's just Black motherhood is such a precious thing. I would find myself reading interviews by Black mothers. I'd find myself on Instagram looking at Black mothers and their new babies under the covers at night, feeling so ashamed. You know, I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I looking at people's families? And then when I spoke to one of my closest friends about it, I said, I don't understand why I'm doing this. Like, I know I'm writing my novel, but I don't even think about my novel while I'm scrolling. And she's like, maybe it's because you're just happy that they're alive. And when she said that, I feel like I almost cried because I was like, that has to do with it. To be happy and giggly and bubbly and to see life like that and safe. That really affected me. And so yeah, call and it's I know it's weird because it's like I'm writing so much about Black motherhood and like I'm not a mother, you know, I want to be, but I also know the risk involved with that as well.
And I think that was the difficulty of it, even for me, because like my last book, as I mentioned, Beyond Bourbon Street, is very much about Black motherhood. And
Mm-hmm.
then we all remember though the first time the Black maternal health care crisis kind of popped up on the radar. I've written about it for in freelance pieces. I have another piece coming out, I think next week, that's going to be talking about it. Hell, I'm pregnant now, and so I'm
Wait,
all.
right? Congratulations. Oh,
Thank you. Yeah, my
oh my
daughter will
God.
probably be here by the time this interview comes out.
Oh my God. Wow,
So
congratulations.
it wasn't so much that Call Baby was triggering, or
Mm.
it's just that I understood where you were coming from, and then I was like, I don't think she has any kids.
I don't. The only thing, my dad is a gynecologist. That's it. But my dad does not talk to me about that stuff. That's the only thing I can say. It's funny because, oh my God, like last year, somebody messaged me on Twitter and was like, I'm gonna mess this up. So if she's listening, I apologize. She's told me that she must have had like 9 miscarriages. And she was like, your book sounds amazing. I just don't know if I can read it right now, but I wish you the best of luck. And I said, I understand. Um, what reading about infertility amongst Black women. I worked at Zora. Zora is a digital magazine for Black women under Medium, and we got so many pitches, and we published so many articles about Black motherhood, the Black maternal crisis, infertility, IVF, IUI, et cetera. And you can't not see that and have it not affect you. You just can't. And it did, and that's the thing. It's funny because I'm wondering if like during promo for Carl Baby, people are gonna be like, so like how many kids do you have? And I'm like, I don't have any yet. But it's something that I think about so much. I think about Black motherhood, just how much we give. You know what I'm saying? How much we give to the world, and how much we've been through historically, that we still give life to others. Is something that is inspiring to me. And that is something that I've just wanted to explore with this book. So when I wrote it, I was thinking about all mothers, the good, the bad, the in between, the unsure, uncertain ones, the young, the old, the rich, and the poor. I thought about all of them. And that's, I hope I did a good job.
It definitely comes through in the different mother-daughter dynamics with Denise and Amara, even Layla and Amara, Hallow and Josephine and Iris and Helena and Mama. It all comes through. But what I also noticed is when you were crafting the story in the beginning about Layla, you touched on how Ralph felt. And I was
Oh
like, you never hear
yeah.
about how a man feels when his wife goes through a miscarriage. And so you kind of
Oh,
gave that perspective a voice. And even though he did what he did in the end and made his decisions, I was
uh-huh.
like, I understood it because he has gone through the same grief as well, even though it wasn't from his body.
You know what? And it's funny because when I was revising it, my beta reader, they're non-binary, and they were saying you got to give more. Give. I don't want to say give the man more lines, center him, but show that this is a journey that they have taken together as a couple, and what does that look like? And so I didn't want to write Ralph off so much that people forget who the owner should be on. However, I wanted people to see that like how does it make him feel every time his wife is disappointed? in herself? How does it make him feel if you live in a society as a Black man and you have to deal with all these messages of your virility and your masculinity, and you can't produce a child with a woman that you love more than anybody else in this world? It makes you feel like a failure. Not in the same way it makes Layla feel like a failure, but because he can't do anything with his own hands. Remember, he's an architect. So he's used to doing things with his hands. He can't do anything with his own might. And it takes the light from them both. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I it's funny, like as I'm talking to him, I'm like, damn, I did write that. Yeah, Ralph is an architect, so he's used to doing things with his hands. He's used to using his mind and figuring things out. And this is the one thing that there's no amount of calculation that he can get right. And it crushes him, as it would anybody. So I wanted to, sorry.
No, it's like it crushes him, but even Josephine's miscarriages crushed Landon. And then his role in the family as intermediary, accomplice, lover, father.
Yeah.
And all of that still not being enough. It's like it was very obvious the men were crushed under the weight that the women had to rise above.
Wow. Say that one more time.
The men were crushed under the weight that the women had to rise above.
Yeah. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And because they, they had no other choice. I mean, think about it. Ralph was like, I'm going back home. I'm going back home to New England. I need to go to my parents' house to collect myself. I spoiled it, but and Landon is like, I could just go down the street. I got my home with my wife. I got other kids there. So it's like they had a cushion in a way that these women did not. And that's not to say that all men have a cushion, but we're both women here. There's certain privileges that they're just women will never have. And I wanted to elucidate that with these two men without making them seem two-dimensional, without making it seem like they can't experience grief themselves. And I've actually, have been around men, or I have watched things with men talking about what miscarriages have done to them. So it's not like I was just totally imagining it.
Yeah, the layers of the book were extraordinary, because as you can see, I can talk about it like for the whole day, because I finished and I was like, oh, we got some stuff to talk about.
Thank you.
The layers were extraordinary. People are really going to love it. I want to shift into a quick speed round, and then we'll do our last question, and I'll let you get back to your day.
Okay. I just want to say thank you so much for enjoying the book. I'm just like, I'm like, God, I'm not a Black mother. And it's also my debut novel. So it hits me in a nerve that's different from my debut nonfiction. So I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
I did. I really did. I was like, I gotta get into this. But for me, it was so familiar, because you're talking about Louisiana. So there were things that I was automatically familiar with. You mentioned the camellia red beans. I chuckled. So, I mean, for me, it felt like home. And
thank you.
I loved it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And
welcome.
granted, I did rely on, I had to remember what I experienced when I was in Louisiana. I also read like the narratives of Jesmyn Ward, for example, and to also help me to just tap into that ancestral knowledge that I'm still learning about. So thank you.
You're very welcome. So speed round. What is your favorite book?
Oh my God, my favorite book. Well, one of my favorite, I'll say one of my favorite books. One of my favorite books actually is Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. Another favorite book of mine is The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. That's another favorite book of mine. And I think the third one I would say is The Temple of the Golden Pavilion by Yukio Mishima. I'm a huge Japanese literature fan. So that's another one that I would say. Sorry, I can't just choose one. I'm a Gemini. I'm really sorry.
No, it's cool. Who is your favorite author?
Oh my God. My favorite author. I'm going to say my favorite author right now. My favorite author is Jesmyn Ward.
What is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie, I'm going to say Coming to America.
So have you seen the sequel?
I just saw it. I just finished it today.
we watched it last night. Yes. And who is your favorite artist?
Like a musician?
Musician, or if you like visual art, whichever. I won't limit you.
Okay, I'll say my favorite music artist, I'll say Sade.
So you had this line in the book, so I have to ask, do you
Oh,
consider yourself an insufferable bougie Black person?
ah, no. Bougie, yes. Sometimes depends on what we talking about. Yes, I am bougie at certain things. I hope I'm not insufferable. I hope I'm not. And I'm glad I have friends who will let me know. Okay, you doing too much. Why'd you ask for that line?
I just I noticed like in books, and I guess because I do it too, there are some times when the author is writing in the voice of the character and in the vein of the book, and then there are some times when authors are speaking out loud to themselves.
Oh
So I was like,
wow.
like that doesn't seem like that's necessarily a character observation.
Well, because it's like, the reason why I wrote that line in there is because you have these black women that don't have no friends, they don't invite nobody over, they keep to themselves, and it's like you're in a community like Harlem. Why don't you integrate with them? And you've been there for so long. So it's like, are you uppity? Like, do you think you better than everybody else? And so, like, when I put that line in there, I was like, I want to think about the ways in which I may have mischaracterized other black women, and maybe other times black women have mischaracterized me. And I wanted to bring that line in there about how even when, Layla and Josephine had that moment, just talking about their infertility, quick exchange, how it just made her feel less alone, and she couldn't stop thinking about it when she went back home. So yeah, it was definitely talking through the characters for sure. Cause I was like, yeah, I definitely mischaracterized a ton of people, and I feel like it's happened to me too. And sometimes we gotta just get corrected and we walk away with something bigger.
Yeah. What's the role of religion and or spirituality in your life? Because you bring in a lot of elements of Catholicism, then they mention they're Episcopalian, they go to a Baptist funeral, and then there's the Orisha with Yemoya. So how does that role play in your life?
Oh, it's huge. It's monumental. I was born and raised Pentecostal. I was baptized in Episcopalian church. Excuse me, raised in I attend virtual Baptist services from time to time. With regards to African spirituality, I have many people in my life who study it. Even those who I've done field work with for my second book. So the main Orishas that I heard about a lot about were Oshun, Yemaya, for example. Those were the biggest ones. And I love learning about it. I love learning about what has kept those of diaspora sustained throughout the centuries. So that's why I wanted to bring that in. That was really important for me to do that. Because I'm a big fan of syncretism, because I do believe that if you were a descendant of enslaved, you often had to meld certain traditions together for survival. And I wanted that blend. I wanted people to see, especially those who black people who may think it's of the devil, if it's not of God, of Christ, or even people who just have no idea that these different types of spiritual disciplines exist one side by side with each other. They're not diametrically opposed as white supremacy would allow us to believe, and they're just as close as neighbors. And so that's what I wanted to be able to blend. And I hope I blended in a way that respected those of the respective religions. But yeah, they're all important to me.
Okay, random tangent. Have you been to Cuba?
I have not, and I want to go so badly. I've been learning so much about it while in quarantine.
Yeah, I went to Cuba in 2018. But you talked about you love the syncretism, and what I noticed, because we made sure that our tour was extra black.
Oh, I know that's right.
So they have a like a basically like a black museum there where you learn about the history of blacks in Cuba. And the
Mm,
first few rooms are about Ifa and then Santeria and then some of the other brotherhoods in,
absolutely.
in the religion. So I definitely recommend that. And then whenever you want to go to Nigeria and go to Yoruba land, then there's also that too.
Absolutely. All of that stuff is, I think, is important. Even if you don't, my personal belief is, even if you don't believe in Oshun or Yemaya Ifa, Santeria, Kanduble, you should still know about it as a person of the diaspora. Because I guarantee you, through 5 degrees of separation, you got a cousin or somebody who has practiced it or has an experience through those particular faiths. So I do believe that it is important.
Okay. Back to the speed round. What do you
Okay.
prefer writing, fiction or nonfiction?
And this time of my life, fiction, because reality's too real right now.
Understandable. What was the first book where you saw yourself?
The first book that I saw myself, oh, you're gonna laugh at this. I think it was the Cheetah Girl series from back
No,
in the day.
I'm not gonna laugh at that.
I'm sorry, like I love it. I loved it.
No, mine would have to be probably Fly Girl by Omar Tyree.
Oh no! See, I read that when I was way too young. I need to revisit that actually.
I think I read
Way
it
too
when I was
young.
like 10, so I
Oh
probably shouldn't have
yeah.
been seeing myself in that book,
I
but I
think I
did.
remember. I remember exactly where I was. I was trying to read it while I was getting my hair done, and I did not understand some of the explicit scenes going on there. But I still read it because it's like trying to get my mind off the pain. So
Yeah, I think that was one of the first books I was like sped through as a child. I think I read that book in like 3 days, and I remember the cover. She black girl on the cover. She had like the bamboo triangle earrings. Yeah.
mhm.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
If I could live anywhere in the world, it would probably be either Berlin or Tokyo. Besides New York, yeah.
Oh, I did not expect those places to
What
come
you
out of
gonna?
your
You think I was
mouth.
gonna say? Oh, maybe actually,
Damn, I
damn.
didn't expect Berlin.
Yeah, no, honestly, if I did not live in New York, if it's stateside, I would say probably Louisiana. I would say that if it's abroad, it would be either between Berlin or Tokyo.
Wow, that is awesome.
Thank you.
So let's transition to our last little bit. So
Okay.
are you working on anything new? Because I know a writer's always writing.
Oh yes, I am. Of course I am. I'm always creating. I know there are times I'm like, I need to take breaks. Like I look at certain artists like Sade who can go like 4, 5, 10 years in between projects, but like my mind is constantly moving. And I think especially in quarantine, like I have no other choice but to daydream. I have no other choice but to feel like I gotta escape because I can't go anywhere right now.
Is it hard for you in separating the creativity from the work that you do as an editor?
Um, damn. That's a good question. Well, I think when I do my editing roles, when I do my editing, I when I'm an editor, I don't divorce it because sometimes I learn about how to revise work when I'm looking at other people's work. I knew that I never wanted to be a writer that just writes. I just can't. I'm a person that always likes to have different cylinders going. And just writing and not communing with other people, whether it's through revising or editing, that's like kind of boring to me. So my creativity stems in a lot of ways. My creativity can stem from, I know how a narrative arc can develop here. And I see that through somebody's story. And I'm like, okay, maybe I can apply that same type of technique when I'm doing my own. So not necessarily, but I will say this. Writing for a book is different than writing online. When you're writing
Yes.
online, your expanse is between, on average, 850 to 2,000 words. When you're writing a book, as you know, it's 60,000 words plus. So you definitely have to stretch yourself more if you're trying to apply the techniques that you use online to, in a print format.
So my
Okay.
final question for the interview. You have staked your career as a writer. Your voice is very dominant in the marketplace, online, and now in the literary area with your books. When
Mm.
you're dead and gone, what would you like someone to write about you and your legacy?
Oh, I would like somebody to say she was just multi-layered. I want somebody to say, listen, everything, she had many parts, but if you really pay attention, every part was synergistic with something else. From her essays to her books to her writings online to the pieces that she edited, all of them are in conversation with each other. So I am hoping that I'll have a career of many faces. What I mean by that is that someone could say, okay, she writes nonfiction, but she also writes novels. She writes novels, but she can also do visual art. She can do visual art, but she can also edit pieces. That's what I want for people to understand. When I'm long gone, first I want to be remembered. That's number one, because a lot of Black women, their works can get lost, quote unquote. I want to be remembered, and I also want people to understand that despite how much versatility I've shown, everything that I've put out in the world is in conversation with something else. It's a call and response, I guess.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Big shout out to Morgan Jerkins for joining us on Black and Published today. Make sure you check out Morgan's debut novel, Call Baby, out now. You will not be disappointed. And if you're not following Morgan, which you already should be, but if you're not, follow her on the socials. She's at Morgan Jerkins on Twitter and _Morgan Jerkins on Instagram. That's our show for the week. If you liked this episode and want more Black and Published, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on your podcast platform of choice. And if you like what you heard, leave us a rating, leave a review, leave a comment. Let us know who you'd like to hear on the show next. We want to hear your feedback. You can also follow Black and Published at Black and Published on Twitter and Instagram. We're at BLK and Published on both platforms. And if you want to keep up with me, head to my website, newrights.com. That's NEWWRITES.com. You can also follow me on the socials. I'm at Nikisha_Elise on both Twitter and Instagram. That's our show for the week. I'll holler at y'all next time. Peace.